Good morning, everyone, and happy Sunday. I'm Charlotte McGinnis, and as always, I want to thank you for joining me for my Sunday soulful conversation, either live here at 11:11 on Facebook or at your convenience later on Facebook or on YouTube. And just a reminder, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/inspire YOUTV. So that's where all my videos get archived, and for those of you that aren't on Facebook, you can join me there at your convenience as well. So great to see everybody, and thanks for joining me. Also, just want to remind you that the prayer ministry is here for you, so all you have to do to submit a request is email me. You can email me at charlottemcginnis@gmail.com. You can go to my website, charlottemcginnis.com, and click on the prayer ministry. You can Facebook me, whatever. You just reach out. You can find me anyway, and I'll make sure that our team of prayer warriors gets on it for you right away, because we are here to lift the vibe for everybody. And there's Molly. Good morning, Molly, Sister Molly in Atlanta. Good to see you. So I'm going to move right into this conversation today. And it took me down some interesting paths as I was developing it. And so we'll see where it goes. It's kind of fun, kind of interesting, and definitely a way to live more peacefully in our bodies in this world, and to really integrate what we talk about every week here, how to live really in a greater degree of peace and love, and just all good things, joy, enlightenment, whatever you attribute to God, which is ultimately love. Well, lately, with all the interesting things happening on planet Earth today, and this crazy dream that we're making real, we believe is real, we're letting it get us all revved up and upset and angry and fearful and defensive, and the list goes on and on and on. Well, the good news is we have another way that we can experience every moment. It's just a decision that we're making. Well, my favorite saying these days comes from the introduction to the course, which we've talked about many times over the years. And you know how sometimes, I bet you all have that experience, maybe not, but that you hear one thing maybe 10 years ago, and today you hear it and it's like, wow, that had a completely different meaning then than it does now. And to be able to sort of chart your growth, chart where you are, because it's, as we expand our awareness, we do experience, we don't step in the same river twice, as the wise sages said. So one of my favorite quotes is, "Good thing this isn't real." So in other words, when I get caught up in what's happening in the world or in life or whatever, or get in a conversation with whoever, I just say, well, good thing it ain't real. And I say that half kiddingly, but with all sincerity at the same time, it's not real. And we're going to talk about a lot of levels of that. And I'm going to, see where you all, I'd love to hear your input, your feedback about it, and definitely feel free to, question, give me your thoughts about this. I'd love to hear it. So in the introduction of A Course in Miracles, the very last statement in the introduction says, "The Course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way: nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." And I think that if we really got that, we wouldn't sweat the small stuff. It's like, what's the 2 rules? Don't sweat the small stuff. And number 2, it's all small stuff. Well, maybe we could even add number 3, and it's not even real anyway. So I was talking to the group Friday, our Course in Miracles group, and by no means am I here to diminish or not I definitely understand there is suffering in the world. There are people who are struggling. There's fear. There's a lot of crazy things happening. There's people who are sick. There's people who are hungry, and people who need more resources of what have you. I mean, there's lots of things in the world that are challenging these days. So, and I know people are hurting. So I want to be very clear that two things. There, you know, we can overcome the world, and we can find, it's not what's really happening, but how we relate to what's happening that brings us peace or fear, love or fear, peace or conflict. So as we learn to change our mind, shift our perception, in other words, choose to see through the eyes of love rather than fear, invite the Holy Spirit into the equation, we see the world differently. As I say every week, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. And good morning, Sue. Happy to see you here today. So, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So, as I said, you know, well, good thing it ain't real. And, you know, as I said, I say this half kiddingly, but not really, because I have found great peace with that, because I'm really at a point where I'm grateful, because I study, I practice, I reflect. I've been on this journey a long time, and I'm really, really beginning to experience the benefits of my endeavors here through my spiritual journey. And so, and I got a ways to go. I still have my little idiosyncrasies and triggers and what have you, but at least I know that, good morning, Marie, good to see you. At least I know that there is a way to be in the world, not of the world, to awaken from the dream. So how do we experience, good thing this ain't real, right? Well, I'm going to go down a little different path at this moment, and it's the idea, a lot of the newer teachings, when I say that, some of the teachings that are coming out, I won't say they're new, because actually we will go back to why they're not new, but they're being presented sort of recycled, and there's a lot of teachers out there talking about this world as a simulation. And at first I was like, what? And then all this AI stuff started coming in. All right, from 30,000 feet, Marie, don't fall. So anyway, the simulation thing really wasn't something that got my attention or I had interest in necessarily. Just wasn't drawn to it for the longest time. And now I'm very curious with AI and the implications of that, both positive and negative. And, you know, I just try to look at everything. And by the way, with AI, as if with everything, we had this conversation in one of our groups last week, is that it's neutral, and we can use the blessing of AI for ego or holy purposes. We can use it for unity, healing, transcendence, to heal, or we can use it to divide and keep perpetuating the illusion of separation. So AI, like everything else, is neutral. So anyway, just wanted to make that clear. So what about this world as a simulation? Well, the idea the world is a simulation suggests that our reality may be an advanced computer generated environment where everything we perceive, including ourselves, is part of a sophisticated program rather than based in physical reality. Okay, so this is talking about, you know, this is just a projection. You know, even now, they're bringing back a lot of, say, for example, Michael Jackson. By the way, I know I said last week, fabulous movie, go see it. But anyway, don't want to digress. But the idea of simulation, really, several years ago, maybe, I don't know, 8 years ago, Ellen and I took the grandkids to Dollywood. And it was a very rainy day, so we did as much inside as we wanted, and as we could, rather. And we went into the theater, and there was a great gospel music, and it was all of her family, her cousins singing, and really a great presentation. But at the end, they did a 3D dolly on stage, and you could have sworn it was her there in the flesh. So, that was really like opening my eyes a little bit to, wow, this could be a simulation. What else are they doing? They, whoever they are, not going there today. But, what else is happening that is being simulated, maybe isn't real as we thought it was. So anyway, that's one aspect of it. I'm going to go to another aspect. I like to, by the way, in these conversations, I look at these, this wouldn't really be something I could do necessarily, or not, in front of, to be a minister, whatever that is. I think everybody's a minister, anybody who decides to be one. There again, you know me, I go down the rabbit hole. Who are the ministers of God? Anyone who chooses to be one, and that is really choosing to live from love. So we don't need any papers or someone to say that you're a minister, but rather I'm just choosing to live from love. So I love this format of being able to just share random, very cool things that I find and throw it out there, see what sticks, see what might resonate with you. I check in my ego as much as possible and say, okay, I just want to share this from love. But I like to explore different thoughts about life and about the soul and the spirit and reality and illusion and God and everything. So today we're talking about the simulation, and how many of you all out there have seen the movie? And it was out at least 20 years ago. I'm not sure how many, but at least. It was James Carrey in The Truman Show. And it was really a great depiction of what a simulation is like. So The Truman Show actually explored the tension between reality and illusion, highlighting the human desire for truth, freedom, and authentic self-determination in a world shaped by media and societal control. Well, it's a movie I'm going to watch again because it did touch me way back then, and there's a lot I forgot, but I got the big idea of it. We're going to talk about that. Another great movie to pull back in that we have on our list is The Matrix. I think that was 25, 30 years ago. Really very indicative of what's real and what's not, and how we are pulled into this simulation. So anyway, The Truman Show, Jim Carrey, he played the role of Truman Burbank, who unknowingly lived his entire life on a massive television set, and every person around him acted on a scripted reality. And this world it seemed perfect. It was called Sea Haven. It was meticulously controlled by Christoph, the show's creator, who manipulated Truman's experiences, fears, and relationships to maintain the illusion. The film presented a fictional yet exaggerated scenario that critiques the voyeuristic nature of media, the ethics of surveillance, and the manipulation of reality for entertainment. So in other words, Truman had lived his life in this Sea Haven, which was just basically it was a reality show, and everyone was doing their script, right? Well, everyone had their script to play. Well, that's what we talk about all the time. This world is a stage, and we're the players playing our roles. So we all have our script and our roles. And really, if we understood that, and I think this movie definitely showed it from a lighthearted perspective, but it yet held really deep meaning, that we wouldn't take things so serious. Because again, there's a lot of great metaphors and lessons in a lot of books and movies that have come out over the years, and one of the greatest, in my mind, metaphorical movies was The Wizard of Oz. There's so many levels of truth there. And anyway, not that it was necessarily, well, we're not going to go down there. I've got a lot to talk about today. So anyway, in The Truman Show, reality versus illusion, Truman's journey represented the struggle, I think we all have that, right, to discern truth in a world dominated by artificial constructs. The dome of Sea Haven symbolized the boundaries of his perceived reality, akin to Plato's cave, where he initially only saw shadows of the real world. So I think that, you know, if you've seen it or not, there's a dome, a huge dome, because it's a city, Sea Haven, and everything is within that. Well, when you think about it, we're all in a dome of some sort. And the dome is of our belief system and our limitations and the illusion and our programming. So what I ended up realizing was when they made reference to this Plato's cave, I got a little curious about that because I never really looked into it. We'll just say I've heard of Plato's cave, but anyway, so what is Plato's cave? Well, Plato's allegory of the cave illustrates the difference between perceived reality and true knowledge, showing us how education and enlightenment can free us from ignorance. So in Plato's allegory presented in his book, prisoners were chained inside a dark cave from childhood, unable to turn their heads, and only saw the wall in front of them. Behind them was a fire, and between the fire and the prisoners, people carried objects that casted shadows on the wall. The prisoners perceived these shadows as the only reality because they'd never seen the actual objects of the world outside the cave. So it's sort of, again, that was their Sea Haven, the cave. And they only knew what they had experienced because that was what was exemplified. So it was all smoke and mirrors, shadows. So the cave actually represented the world of appearances and sensory experiences, while people are limited to partial or distorted knowledge. And so that, again, that's partial and distorted knowledge. Well, you know, we can go real big, and they had partial and distorted knowledge in Sea Haven, Truman did, but the cave is even smaller, and it was just all shadows, right? But ultimately, how far out does this go? And I think about that, and the universe is infinite and goes on forever and ever and ever, and yet it's nothing. And so it's kind of like, how do you even make those two meet? Well, I think that it's about us really understanding nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. These concepts are fun to play with. They're actually showing us how we are programmed by scripts, whoever the director of the play is. I think it's kind of like we're just playing, we have our own Sea Haven here on planet Earth, and everybody in our life and the world experience on the world stage is playing their roles, and yet we make it real, and we get upset by it, but we're not seeing behind the curtain as in The Wizard of Oz. So the cave, represents a world of appearances and sensory where we're limited to distorted knowledge. Well, the shadows symbolize illusions or false beliefs or the incomplete understanding of reality based solely on sensory perception. And the fire acted as a source of artificial life, representing or misleading sources of knowledge. So it's all these all these symbolism, the artificial light, the appearance of that which isn't real, and we're so limited. And if we're not willing to look, beyond the veil of all of our limited beliefs, because there is no end to the universe and to this illusion. Really, we just keep perpetuating it, and it keeps expanding through our attention to it, right? We give attention, it expands. So what if we decided, okay, I get it. I'm not in the sea haven anymore. I'm going to get out of the cave, which in Plato's cave, how do we get out of the cave? When the prisoner is free and exposed to the outside world, he initially struggled to comprehend reality, but gradually perceived the true form of objects, symbolizing the philosopher's path to enlightenment and understanding of the forms. So it goes on to say the sun represents the ultimate truth and the form of good, illuminating reality and allowing true knowledge. So that's where I want to go, is this analogy of the sun. And the sun represents God, and in this story. And so that is the ultimate truth, and that's our ultimate freedom. So yes, we've been sort of hoodwinked, and we get caught up in this dream, and we keep making up more dreams and more drama and more sickness and more poverty and more wars and some good stuff along the way. And it's all just part of the movie, okay? But how do we get out of the cave? How do we get out of sea haven? Well, turn our consciousness, turn our attention to the sun. And I love the analogy of sun being the light, being God, being the ultimate knowledge, and also the sun, and S-O-N being Christ consciousness. Jesus, other masters who have attained this awareness that is only we're getting glimpses of. Those of us mere mortals get only glimpses, but it doesn't mean that we don't have the potential to fully embrace and awaken from our own cave or our own sea haven. So, as moving on to Plato, he says he uses these allegories to illustrate key ideas. So what we perceive through our senses are only shadows of true forms of reality. We discussed that. Education and enlightenment is not just memorizing facts, but turning the mind toward truth and understanding higher realities. And I want to spend a minute on that because, we're, as ego beings, we're so proud of ourselves for how many letters we have after our name, our accomplishments, all these things we identify with our self-worth, and at the end of the day, we really realize they're meaningless. And all that really matters, that true knowledge, is about living from a higher perspective, from saying, you know what, it ain't real anyway. I'm not going to get upset, because the truth of who I am, my soul, is changeless, formless, and eternal, and none of this matters. It seems to matter. We take it real serious, and it gets us all bent out of shape, and it's by design. It's designed to keep us distracted. It's designed to keep us from keeping our eye towards the sun. And this is not only my truth or your truth, it's the truth of every being on this planet, and I would say beyond. So we have a resistance to knowledge because sometimes we reject enlightenment because we're always, there's a part of me that wants that, and that sounds really peachy and nice and good, but just in case, I still want this. And I think I need a little more money, and I want a bigger house, and I want this vacation, and I want this relationship, and I want this and this and this and this, and then I'll worry about the enlightenment later. Well, I don't think that it's a negative or a bad thing to aspire and to want to have fun while we're here in our body in this dream. But it all goes back to, as I was sharing earlier, everything, am I using my gifts for ego or Holy Spirit? Am I showing up here to say, okay, use me as a vessel of extending and expanding love, of creating unity? and that if I am, as I choose to be blessed and manifest great things, to share those and use those as a means of healing rather than power and control. Because ultimately, whether we believe it or not, I do believe that the kingdom of heaven is not necessarily, and I'm not talking about the kingdom of heaven with, the gold streets and the beautiful white robes and angels, which is a cool thing, and that would be fun. Not poo-pooing it either, but really the kingdom of heaven is a state of awareness. It's not a destination. In other words, heaven is here right now if we just choose to turn towards the sun. So philosophers, like the freed prisoner, seek to understand deeper truths and take a responsibility for guiding others towards knowledge. So it's, I think as we experience peace, I think the greatest gift we can give back is to share it with others. And ultimately, how do we share it with others? Well, by our deeds, by our thoughts, by our actions, not just talking about it. Who we are speaks louder than really any words we can say. So, live the word. And I know that yesterday I was watching a podcast. Greg Braden, of course, was being interviewed by these two guys who I didn't know. And the one fella, I believe, I don't know his name. I'm going to look up his podcast more, but it's called The Jesus Way. And this fella is really handsome young man, probably 30s maybe. He is a fourth generation of ministers, preachers of big churches. And some of it was just like, this just doesn't 100% make sense. Wasn't a negative, wasn't like rebellious, but he was seeking bigger understanding of and seeking truth. And sometimes, with good intentions and I think that many people in the church biz, okay, if you want to call it a business or whatever, mean well and they want to do well, but sometimes the focus is more on butts in seats, paying for the electric bill, paying for the new bigger building, and let's be bigger, and sometimes lose sight of really the real message. But one thing he said yesterday that was meaningful to me was that we have to remember, not that it was new or any like, oh, wow, but rather we have to live like Christed beings. Be generous, be kind, be forgiving, be compassionate, be loving, generosity, everything. Don't just talk about it. So who we are speaks volumes. So, the Truman Show, I could go on and on and on, but I think you've gotten a good taste of the message here. And Christoph, the producer of this reality show, which is really, look at this this life we're living is a reality show, and it's not real, right? It's not. So Christoph embodied a controlling deity. He was a controlling deity orchestrating Truman's life while believing he's providing happiness. This raises questions about mortality, power, and the list of authority. So I think that my point is even well-intentioned as we may want to be, sometimes if we really look deeper, am I really doing this for holy purposes or for control and manipulation? And the Course in Miracles says we need to question every belief and value that we hold about everything, because they're all upside down and backwards, and our programs that are in the computer, in the matrix, are really screwed up based on fear. So we really need to reflect on our own lives individually and question, how much of our reality, perceived reality, is influenced by external forces, okay? And how much is genuinely from love. And so every moment, we're choosing how do we get out of this matrix? How do we get out of Sea Haven, get out of the cave. Well, we choose to go towards the sun. We focus on the light. And we have to be vigilant for that. And the good news is even if we stay trapped in this illusion, ultimately awakening is inevitable. But we can do it now or we can do it later. And I say, what are we waiting for? How much longer do we want to play in this? It's up to you. It's up to me, really. Ultimately, delay is meaningless in eternity, but tragic in time. And that's a great teaching from the Course in Miracles. In the realm of eternity, it really doesn't matter, but in time, are you in heaven and hell right now? Every moment we're choosing to go to the sun, the light, go to God, choose love or fear. So I want to shift, not too much, but go down a little bit, just something to support this. But Buddha, Buddhism is a very interesting, wonderful teaching. It's not necessarily a religion, but a way of being, a way of life. Buddha, you all may know his story. I don't want to go into the whole thing. I may do a talk on Buddha one day, but his birth name was Siddhartha Gautama, and he was also known as Buddha, and he was born in a royal family, which was in Nepal, present-day Nepal. And so he was really sheltered. His life was sheltered. It was like he had his own little dome over him, which was a wall. I don't know how large his environment was, but it was, like a city of perfection. It was beauty and no sickness and all the, plenty of everything, plentiful and abundant and only beauty and comfortable. And his father created this little internal city to shelter Buddha or Siddhartha from the trauma and troubles of the world, the sickness, the aging, illness, death, poverty. And so at one point, Buddha was like, I think he had a glimpse of an aging, sick person, and it was like, whoa, what's that about? I thought it was all like this. And with that, came I'm going to go check this out. So Buddha went on his journey to enlightenment and began to see that there was another world outside of Sea Haven, outside of the cave, outside his little fortress of beauty. And so ultimately that enabled him to reflect deeply. He realized then that, wow, there is something beyond the programs that I've been fed. Not from a place of judgment or anger, but necessarily just a place of curiosity and deciding how to process that and to live from that place. Well, he literally contemplated and reflected and meditated and came through with some great truths, and we will at some point talk about those. But he did find that I think his greatest message is all suffering, and I agree with this, is from attachment. And it's attachment to my Sea Haven, my cave, my whatever, little kingdom, because we all live in these little traps anyway, simulated somewhat. I'm really beginning to see that. And as long as everything in my little program is acting the way I want it to, then yippee, I'm good, I'm happy, I'm peaceful. But what if? Well, if I'm attached to the outcome of anything, if I'm attached to anything externally to bring me peace, to be happy, I'm not going to be. So that it's really a matter of detachment. It's being in the world, not of the world. It's recognizing that we're never going to find the peace that we're seeking in the matrix, in the cave, whatever we want to call it. So all that goes back to my idea of today's talk, the truth. I won't say idea, the truth for me at this moment is nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And when we realize, this is just a simulation of some sort, and we all have our little caves that we live in, and we value those, and we defend them and attack and pit against each other. And as Dr. Phil says, how's that working for you? Well, ultimately, if you want to, stay in the cave, stay in Sea Haven, stay in your little simulation, that's fine. But if you want the juicy good stuff, keep your eye on the light. Keep your eye on the sun. And how do we do that? Well, there's many, many ways. I think the first step to enlightenment is to surrender, to say, okay, I choose to see. Good morning, Donna. I'm choosing to show up differently. I'm choosing to have a different teacher. I'm beginning to see, this may be a simulation and this isn't real, but I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm willing. And, just have a conversation with your higher self, with the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit will say, oh, good one, Charlotte, you're willing. Let's go. I'm going to show you another way to look at this. And then, boy, be ready for the floodgates to open. Well, perception, in the Course in Miracles, the definition of a miracle is a shift in perception. And in other words, it's not the situation changing. It's not, it's a miracle. I won the lottery or parting of the sea, although those things are pretty awesome and cool. The shift in perception means that I'm choosing to see love rather than fear. I'm looking beyond the veil of fear and seeing the light. So our perception is the most powerful force of creation in our world. When we change the way we see something, what we see will change. When we change the way we see our past, our memories will change. When you change the way you see your present changes. Changing your perception of your past, present, or future changes your timeline. Can you see it? The power of our mind is beyond what we've been told. Cultivate your mind with care. Learn to work with your mind on a subconscious level. This is what changes our entire experience of life. This is the power that we don't tap into enough. We hold so much power that we're not even aware of. And it's not about attaining anything externally. It's that shift in perception. And the more we choose the miracle, choose love over fear, we lift the veil, we begin to see, wow, this isn't even real. Only God is real. Only love is real. Only the kingdom of heaven is real. That's what is meaningful. That's what I want. Yes, it's been this earth has been a very interesting journey. It's brought me some joy and tears and lots in between. But in the experience, I'm grateful for. But it's the kingdom that awaits us is far greater than anything that we're seeking and attached to. So all suffering is attachment. And so if you're suffering, you're attached, bottom line. So your homework, what really has helped me through this is to this mantra that I started with. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Just say that. I say that all the time. It just sort of comes through all the time. Nothing real can be threatened. My soul, all is well with my soul. Nothing unreal exists. This is just a simulation. It's not real. We think it is. But to explain that, I think the more we go to the sun, keep our eye on the light, we operate more from a place of faith and trust, and I don't really question things so much anymore. I'm curious, but really the result of peace from saying, well, it ain't real anyway, is pretty cool. And so when we keep our eye on the prize, herein lies the peace of God. And ultimately, that's what we're all here, I think, on Sundays and in our life. I feel like I'm preaching to a pretty open-minded crew here on a regular basis. And ultimately, yeah, we just want to be better beings. We want to live more peacefully. We want to really live from our soul rather than from fear. So with that, I will say goodbye for this week. I'll look forward to seeing you all next week. And if you choose to pass this along, you can share it and just push that share button. And thank you all for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you next week. Okay, take care, everybody. Namaste.